Hello, Tom. Hello, Gavin. G'day, Dominic, Andre, Anders, Andrew C. or Andy. Can't remember what your name is. Sorry about that. Rowan. And most importantly, hello, Jamie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. A modern form of communication. It seems to have been working all right with us. But given you won't let us in over there, I'm really, really glad that you've joined us via Zoom. This is our 4th episode of Hardball Chat, so we've still got a little bit of our training wheels on. I hope you don't mind. We're ambitious to start something that provides a community or a forum for the coaching community across Australia, no matter what level, but maybe particularly in Aussie rules, and that's what we're focusing on to start with, to really come and hear from each other. And when we talk about inviting guests on, it's from an elite level all the way through to community level, understanding different experiences. So maybe even some of the questions and the journey that you've had relate as much to where you started as to where you find yourself currently. So
yep.
I guess one of the things, Jamie, it's easy to do the Google search at the moment, and your name's been quite obvious, particularly in the last few months, as much around going through that really tough process of a elite job. And so I guess a few of us out there probably recognise, even though you've been out here with St Kilda before, recognise your name from that. But there's a much, much bigger story of starting your footy life in Kalgoorlie and the road that you took to being rookie and heading to West Coast. Rather than sounding like the compare, would you mind just, for those that aren't so familiar, would you mind just taking us through that journey? As long as you like, because it's a fascinating story of success and adversity and challenges, and I think it's well worth sharing.
Good on you. Yeah, thanks, Richard. And before I start, thanks everyone for joining. I think it's important. And it's great to see that you guys are really trying to better your coaching and, doing some personal development yourself and jumping online. So it's fantastic, and well done to you. For me, where I'm from, as Richard mentioned, I'm from Kalgoorlie. Originally, I had a little bit of a different background. I grew up, my grandparents, my pop was a horse trainer, and my grandmother, she worked at the local laundry. And like anyone who's been in a country town, sport was a big part of your life. So I played all the sports you can think of, and really took to footy and had some important role models, which I'll touch on later, which helped direct me to come to Perth and play football for South Fremantle. So that's where I spent most of my playing days, was at South Fremantle in Perth. I was fortunate enough to get rookie listed to West Coast Eagles. I had a very average AFL career, so I didn't play a lot of footy, but was at West Coast between 2003 and 2008 before heading back to South Fremantle to finish playing my waffle career. Like a lot of players, while I was playing, I was doing a few short courses here and there. I was an apprentice electrician before leaving Kalgoorlie, and when I got drafted, it was back then you couldn't really do an apprenticeship. So unfortunately, the couple of years I did there, I lost that. So I did a few short courses, and there wasn't much that was quite meaningful, really. So I was at a bit of a loose end at the end of my playing career, and wasn't sure what to do. And I was working in a job that paid well. It was an earth moving company, but thought, no, it's not for me, and I've got to do this for the rest of my life. So I decided to go back to university. I had to do a few courses to get in, because I only did year 10, and did a few courses, got into uni, and was doing a teaching degree. And at that point, I was playing waffle. I was doing my teaching degree. I was working at Scotch College doing. I was an Indigenous liaison officer. Started dipping my toe in the coaching, and did some coaching at Scotch, and also coached the development squads at South Fremantle. In 2011, unfortunately, I was 28. I got a serious knee injury, and that was the end of my footy career. And that year, with all the coaching, I really turned my attention to that. I started helping with the league team as well. I was captain at the time, so I was an assistant. And in 2011, an opportunity came up at St Kilda to interview for a development coaching role, which I did. And I was fortunate enough to get that role. And I worked with Macca for a couple of years there at St Kilda in development. And in 2013, I moved back to West Coast Eagles, which I've currently been there right up until this stage, 8 years there in a variety of roles, development forwards, coached the back line, coached the forward line for 3 years, and also had a stint coaching their alignment team, East Perth, for 1 year. So I've done a variety of roles, and this year I've crossed the bridge and I've joined Fremantle. So yeah, it's my story. Quite
is
short.
that for us in the East? Is that a burnt bridge? Is it a one-way street? Is it a one-way street?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to go back.
Yeah.
But yeah, like anything, time heals. So yeah, with the coaching and where I want to go, it was important for me to really expand my coaching and evolve that and experience a different environment. Obviously, I want to impact at Fremantle and help them, but it's also as much as me growing as well as a coach. So I'm excited for that opportunity.
Hey, I hope you don't mind if I just wind back for a sec. You passed over something pretty quickly there, and I think you used the word mediocre or average in terms of talking about your AFL career. Yet you had a season where you were 22 out of 23 games or 23 out of 24 games. You'd had some injuries that really informed your ability to get back into that team. But that year, 2006, was a premiership year. You played a vital role in that side. Maybe didn't play in that last game. But, that's an interesting mindset when you talk about your coaching ability to connect with players. And you're going to have a lot of players who play less games than you. Is that the right way to look at it? Or is that been an extraordinarily successful career in AFL terms?
Yeah, I suppose anyone who's pulled on the boots at AFL level, it's a big achievement. I'm trying. I suppose humility is one thing of mine, and the fact that I reflect back and look that I've played AFL is a big achievement, especially where I come from. And obviously, my family are very proud of me doing that. When I reflect back, it would have been nice to have played more games and played a longer career, but I do think I got the best out of myself. So when you look at it that way, Richard, I think on average an AFL career is 4 years, and that's with some guys playing 15 or 12 and others playing 1. So I spent 5 years at a club, so that's average. But yeah, I don't have any regrets on my footy career. I think I gave it everything, and unfortunately, I had some limitations which probably held me back. I was very slow, so that held me back a bit. But it's definitely helped with my coaching and to be able to reflect on that and also pass on my experiences being one of those fringe type players who are in and out. I think it's helped, which I'll touch on my relationships with players. It helps you have empathy and understand where the majority of the lists are coming from. There is that handful of players that you look, and it's at any grade, from amateurs through to waffle, through to league, AFL. There's players who feel comfortable and they know they're in the side, and there's others who live on edge. And when I went back and played waffle and captained the club, I felt that, I suppose, that belonging where I was part of the team. I was an important cog, and I knew I was going to play every week, but there was guys in our team there that were on edge and trying to keep their spot every week. So I can share those experiences.
Yeah, it seems that between injury, it's an interesting choice of word. I don't want to challenge it too much, but it's interesting that we talk about people being fringe when we're about giving positive affirmation and role playing, that we still use words like fringe to denote those that maybe come in and out. But having that injury, coming into a team, coming out of a team, but coming into a team that is in its best shape, attacking premierships, and then having reasons outside of footy, and family that are informing you about what you should do next. it seems like a lot of that started to shape your thinking about what kind of coach you could be. Andrew Hickmont talked about it, you at East Perth, and your ability to gel effectively the same as, you've got your East Perth players and your West Coast players, and how you got them to work together. I mean, that's a unique skill.
Yeah, I suppose if you're touching on the getting players to work together, I think everything I've learnt with setbacks, or I mentioned fringe, like having to try and get into a team and the pressure you're under, my experiences growing up, my experiences through teachers, or everything shapes you as a coach, I suppose. So yeah, I do reflect on all of those and my challenges that I've had and successes, and that helps mold you who you are as a person and you as a coach. So yeah, I definitely use those experiences to help bring a team together.
So can you describe that in terms of wrapping all of that up into the idea of being a relationship coach? What does that mean?
Yeah, it goes back. It was interesting reflecting on my style as a coach. You've got to be who you are, and it's got to be natural to you. And you do ask a question about, do you think you can develop your relationships? For me, I reflect back on my experiences growing up, and I touched on the phone to you, Richard. My grandfather, he was a horse trainer, and we had our whole life, we had jockeys living with us, we had stable hands living with us, and he was a strong relationship builder. And Mac will have a laugh here, but every time he'd take off somewhere, he'd say to me, "I'm going to go see a man about a dog," because I'd ask where he's going, and he said, "You coming?" And you jump in and you realise he was really going for someone's house for a barbecue, or he's going for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And he was just building relationships. And then when I think about the teachers I had, I had a great maths teacher. Actually, one of the better teachers I had, Mac, was Roscoe McQueen, who you know well. And they were just teachers who built relationships with you and got to know you. I don't know how good they were at teaching their subject, but you bought in. And there's the same with a couple of junior coaches. So when I think about that, when I reflected on the fact that I was going to go back and teach and then also become a coach, I thought about the people that have impacted my life and thought I'd really like to do that. And as it turns out, I'm doing it, and I'm getting paid to it as a profession, and love it.
So when you take that as a principle, can you talk a little bit about putting that into action? Because it quite often for a lot of us, I think, we can understand it in a principle, but the intangible for us is how do you build a series of what are the actions that come from it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've with my new role, I don't actually officially start till Monday with Fremantle, but I've spent this week catching up with players for a coffee. And first of all, I think what's most important with your playing group and individual players is that you really care about them as a person, not just as the athlete. And again, thinking about my experiences, I've had coaches in the past, old school coaches, which probably doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work as well these days, who treated you like an athlete and a player, and if you had a bad game, they wouldn't look at you walking down the hallway, So I think the most important thing to start off with is that you care about your players as people first and foremost, and you get to understand them, know what makes them tick, know a bit about their background, their family. I'd say that's the first, that's the starting point with developing relationships with your players. And like anything, if you have that respect and that trust, the players are more likely to buy in with you.
How does that early stage, and I guess, what would you call early stage, all the way through pre-season? Would you call it pre-season, start of season, or is it your first year? What sort of?
Oh yeah.
How long's it got?
Don't know, like anything, some relationships take longer, don't they? And some players take a little bit longer to crack and get to know them. But yeah, it's interesting because I've been doing my teaching prac at the moment. So for those who don't know, I'm still studying and I'm at Wesley College doing the teaching prac. And all this year I was in there 1 day a week teaching on a Wednesday. And yeah, I was really just teaching the topic. And now I've been in for 3 weeks straight. I'm starting to build some relationships with the kids and seeing that I'm starting to break through. And I know their name. Like when I was going 1 day a week, I had a new class every week, and I didn't know their name. So that's not a great start as it is. So so that just proves that as well. So just over this 3 week period, having these boys regularly, I've got to know a little bit about them, have conversations. Yeah, and I've felt I've had more impact in this 3 week block that I've been doing my prac. So to answer your question, there's probably no timeline. You know, one of the better successes I had with a player, and then unfortunately it didn't turn out too well for Willie Rioli, was the fact he was I reckon he was about 90 kilos, and he's not very tall, Willie. And we went away to the Tiwi Islands and spent 5 days on the island with Willie and got to know him that way. But prior to that, we found it hard to crack and break in and build that relationship. So that was interesting, just going back to his hometown and getting to know him better that way. So yeah, there's no time frame.
Would you do you subscribe, or do you see a necessity in trying to begin to, let's say it's overlaying a sort of psychological map? Is there personality types, and you begin to understand that, and then you work your different communication styles? Are you constructing that kind of pattern so that you know where you're at and check in with yourself and understand yourself as much as one of your players?
Yeah, that's right. There's knowing yourself's important, and there's all these different profiling that you can do out there. So you don't want to try and be something you're not, but also understanding your players. And you know, some clubs use disc profiling. I know at Wesley, it's the school are doing it, and they've got this VIA profiling that they use. So understanding your players and their personalities, but also as a coach, understanding how they like to be educated as well. Because sometimes when players aren't doing it, it's just that they don't actually necessarily understand it. So are they visual? Most of them are kinesthetic. Most players they like doing, but understanding not only them as a person.
Is that in terms of types of learning, visual, repetition? Okay.
Yeah, so you've got them as a person and who they are, but then also how they learn. And I've probably learned that most in a school environment. Some students are acting up, not because of who they are as a person, but they just don't understand. So yeah, and I've been reflecting on that, and you take that into your coaching. You've got all different types of players, and so understanding not only them as a person and their behaviours, but also how they like to learn. That's important. So that's part of them as people.
The relationship development has a peer and reporting up requirement as well. How are you applying the same principles?
So what do you mean by that?
Other coaches. But first is the relationship with the other coaches.
Yeah.
Then there's a relationship with senior coach, and let's call it the executive. And then there's the relationship with fans. I mean, all of them are probably important. I understand that your players are probably the most important, but being understood as a relationship coach, how do you go about the other parts of the club? Yeah,
it's critical. I think these days that, you know, culture and people fitting into teams, environments. Again, I was talking to my mentor at Wesley at the moment. He's head of phys ed, and he's talking about teachers coming into their phys ed department, and he spoke about, you know, picking the right people, not necessarily their skill set, but the right people to fit in. And that's the same at footy clubs. It doesn't matter what club you're at. Generally, people are pretty like-minded and team-orientated and good at building relationships, because you don't tend to last too long at that one club. But you might see people shift around different clubs. So most people at footy clubs they're all on the same page from that point of view. You do need to adjust, I suppose, if you'd like to use the term managing upwards. Yeah, but I think what's important is that you yourself. But there's times you might just have to read the cues depending on who it is that you're dealing with.
Tell me about the move across east, visibility. A role came up with St Kilda.
Yep.
You developed skills in the waffle. How did you go about that process of adjustment, or was there a process of adjustment?
Yeah.
You've gone through it a couple of times now, I guess, for a senior coaching role, but first reflecting on St Kilda.
Yes.
How easy was that migration, or hard was that migration?
Yeah, it come a little bit unexpected, to be honest, and I feel a little bit guilty because there's some people out there that work their backsides off for years to get that opportunity. And whilst I was working away, it come pretty quick. My playing career at waffle level finished that year. Mind you, I was doing a teaching degree and coaching, so I was working away at that. Really, I rocked up at St Kilda with Macca the same year and got given a laptop and said, here you go. And off you go. And it's interesting. I didn't have a lot of development or coach development, and yeah, off we went. And I like I said, I just tried to be myself, build relationships. I was a development coach, so in that role, you really do get to spend a lot of time with players and do that. Yeah, but I learned plenty being in that elite environment. But I must admit, reflecting on it now, I was quite raw as a coach. I've definitely developed along the way. Yeah, so my experience there at St Kilda, I come back to West Coast Eagles where they were well resourced. We had a Gavin Bell there. He coached the coaches, and we all had development plans as coaches. So I think that's really important. The players, you work hard on giving feedback. They have goals in place. What are they working on? That's one thing that they brought in, or I experienced in my first year back at West Coast, is who am I as a coach? So you had to reflect on that, and then what do you actually want to work on? And often we had people sitting in our reviews. Neale Daniher was there at the time. He helped mentor us as coaches, and he would sit in your one-on-one reviews or your line reviews and give you feedback. So I think that's really important as a coach, that yes, we're giving players feedback and we're developing them, but that we're always trying to better ourselves. And that's why I mentioned earlier in the show, the fact that you guys are here is fantastic, that you really care about developing your coaching. Yeah, we started getting instant feedback at West Coast, and it was regular feedback, and that's definitely helped me grow as a coach. So that reflection.
With Gavin and Neale, could you see adjustments? What did you take from their mentoring? Did it adjust your philosophy around relationship management? Maybe you can point to a couple of things that are, as you matured, what it did to you, the way you were going about it.
Yeah, Neale, and I'm sure we all know who Neale is. He was a relationship coach. He helped from that point of view. He gave good little tips as far as your one-on-one and your messaging around for individuals, but also in your line. And Gavin's got a teaching background. He was more around your planning and your preparation for sessions, for line meetings. We'll put our hands up. We've all been there. We've had something not planned out as well, when it definitely doesn't work. So he was big on planning. What are you going to get out of the session? The why are you doing what you're doing? So that was Bally's angle that he took. And yeah, I took a lot away from that, and I was learning that in my teaching degree. But I've had my son plays footy, and his junior coach one day, I put him on the spot. I asked what his plan was, and he actually didn't have a plan for his session. And he is a dad helping out, I know. But I said, mate, you got to have a plan. What are you going to get out of the session? So yeah, that's something I took away early days, and yeah, it's really held us in good stead. That constant feedback, and also reflecting on how did it go. Yeah, you had all this planning process in place, but how did the actual session turn out? Did you achieve what you want? Do you have to do the same thing again, or do you need to move on? So yeah, there's some of the things that we learn along the way.
I think, Jaymie, that's one of the sort of invaluable insights, because a little bit of planning for with a purpose can be applied to any level of footy, and understanding, you may be a sophisticated organisation at the elite level, but even just perhaps taking a short period of time to say, what can 18, 22, 30 players, men or women, achieve in an hour and a half? And being able to maybe communicate that. I mean, that communication element must be as equally as important. You might have a plan, but can you communicate it to your team?
Yeah, there's the communication and how you're going to do it. I think the biggest thing I've learned, especially now being back on prac in this day and age, like when a lot of it, I'm looking at the screen here, a lot of us were playing, and it wasn't that long ago, really. The coach would just tell you, this is what we're doing, and you did it. Whereas now, this is why building relationships is important, but also the players understand, and students, I'm talking at school, understand the why, like why they do. They want to know why. So, being able to communicate why we're doing something and how it's going to help the individual and also help the team is critical, and that helps with that buy-in.
We've seen probably over the last 4 years, if just looking at elite football, this a culture of finding fun in the game, the enjoyment of the game, understanding the individual, and the strengthening of a need for coaches who can build rapport, relationship at all levels. There's still comes some hard chats. There's still some moments where feedback is necessary, and I think quite often we can fear that conversation. How have you used relationship development to get to bridge those tougher moments?
Yeah, you're spot on. Just because you're a relationship coach, it doesn't mean you're soft and don't lie. I've got pretty big eyebrows, so I can lower them when I need to. But I talk to your players, and you really coach them like they're your kids. I've got Hudson and Neve. I love them to death, but if they step out of line, I let them know. Like it's, I think building that trust, that respect, and that love and care. They know that when you are having a go, it's because you care about them and you're letting them know. But yeah, the ranting and raving and all that sort of stuff, that's probably gone a little bit. You can pull it out every now and again, but it's not sustainable. But yeah, back to the relationships point of view, it doesn't mean you're soft because you coach that way.
You played in an era with West Coast, which became something of a symbol of probably anti-culture, or maybe not the right culture. And then you're there in a club building relationships. Must be an extraordinary paradigm or distance between the two. Yeah,
it probably. I think you asked a question over the phone around culture and strategy, and I think you used the quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." You're right. Everyone's got different cultures, and I played in an era which, as we can see, there's some players who it hasn't turned out too well for them, and there's a lot of ability in that playing group, and they went on to win a premiership. But it just shows the importance of having a really strong culture and for it to be sustainable. You can have success with talent, but as it turns out, and when we reflect, and everyone who was involved at the time, when you reflect on how things have panned out, what was happening was definitely not sustainable. So most people now, most organisations, they look at getting really good people involved. They've still got to be good at what they do, But for my time at West Coast, after that period, they did start really recruiting straight-laced people who weren't going to take risks, and they fell off the cliff a little bit from a performance point of view, but they worked really hard on their culture and the standards and their expectations and the behaviours. Really went down a trademark model and had external people involved, and that went on for years. And I think that really held them in good stead in recent times. They got good people involved and set high standards and real clear expectations on the behaviours that they wanted. So it's really important, the culture side of things, and it's important that it's sustainable, whatever it is that you're setting up.
It's become a bit binary, the conversation, in some respects. We seem to be, identifying people as either being one or the other, a great relationship manager, great relationship coach, or someone who's highly proficient in technical competencies or call it game strategy. Is that necessarily so? I don't know whether we're just talking about it because it's easy to talk about that way. Can you be both?
Yeah, I definitely think you can be both. Some people are stronger in one area than the other. Often you understand your strengths as a coach, and head coaches will surround themselves with people that can help out in that area as well. But I think in this day and age, coaches and teachers, when you reflect on teachers as well, are starting to become both. And I think it's important. Again, I'll keep referring back to my teaching practice, which I'm doing at the moment, but the head of phys ed there asked me that exact same question. He said, can you be a tactical coach and not build relationships? And I put it back on him with teaching staff. I asked the same question, and he said, no. He said, really, you need to be able to build relationships. And I've come across coaches who are fantastic, X's and O's, and get on the whiteboard and explain something. But like we've touched on earlier, players need to really buy in, and it is through those relationships. And they will buy in. They'll do whatever you tell them, really, if you can build those relationships. So I think it's important that you try and develop both. You asked the question, is it something that you can develop? And I believe anything you can develop anything, really, if you have that growth mindset and you work hard in that area. I think one thing that can stop people growing with the relationships is ego. There's a couple of things I believe in. You have to have humility to be able to build strong relationships, and like anyone, people with an ego really. My pop's always said this to me: if you have humility, it gives you the right power, because it draws people to you rather than pushes you away, and it gives you the right perspective, because you don't underestimate others and you don't overestimate yourself. So humility is important, and also being have that empathy. I think these days coaches have got empathy, and again, it doesn't mean you're soft, but you can put yourself in other people's shoes and understand where they're coming from or where they have come from. So there are a couple of things that it's important, but yeah, you can definitely develop it, and I think you can have both.
I think it's nice that you've said that, and I apologise in some ways that there's a humility that sits behind how you reflect on your playing career. I think the rest of us probably think it's superstardom. So, but understanding the nuance of the difference, and possibly this, it's a good segue into what you talk about is preserving the love of the game.
Yep.
That pressure. So going back to that idea of perhaps the fringe player, perhaps the player that can see that their football mortality is a little bit or a lot shorter than somebody else, but how they get the joy, how they get the fun out of however long their career is. That's important. I understand that that's very important to you as a coach. Yeah,
protecting the love of the game, and probably thought more about it now at this elite level, because everything's so scrutinised. Players' performances. There's AFL 360. There's on the couch. There's all this. There's more journalists out there than there are players. So protecting the love of the game is important, not only for the players but coaches. So I think, like anything, when you reflect on community level clubs and that, having that sense of belonging, first of all, if you can have this culture and that sense of belonging, doesn't matter what role you're in, your role it is that you have in the team. If you really feel like you belong, that's critical. And little things like mixing it up, having fun, is important. And again, that doesn't matter what level it is either. So a bit of variety. Variety is the spice of life. So there's that balance between that consistency and doing something over and over again, which I'm quite that way inclined. But one thing I learned from Adam Simpson, he brought variety in, and that playing music, having fun, playing games on the off day, having competition, and last of all, I think having a balanced wave. Adrian Hickmont and I spoke about this balanced wave we created, and we've all been in footy clubs where you win and you're a 10. Yeah, if we talk about feeling good, you're a 10. You have a win, everyone's up and about, and you lose, and everyone's you're 0 and depressed. And yeah, you might feel that way for the first 24 hours, but what's important is come Monday that you're back, and we believe you live in between the 6 and the 8, and you live in that process area. Whereas I think that can help protect the love of the game internally, especially because there's so much scrutiny externally. So there are a few things that we work on, and I strongly believe in, and I think it's really important. It doesn't matter what level it is, actually. That love of the game is important, and remembering why we do what we do, why we play the game.
That love of the game and respect of opponent seems, if we reflect on respect of opponent and what happens post game, we once judged players so harshly for a smile on a defeated team, and yet now it's a community of footballers who seem to be able to. Occasionally we get the journalists, a robber throw a few spears or whatever it might be, but I guess that's part of it, isn't it? That, it's contained within the 120 odd minutes, and then you come back. When the cameras are on, I guess there's certain levels of performance that are expected maybe by fans, but that ability for you to manage young men and women in that middle band is really important. Yeah. Values. You talked about being valued the other day. I thought it was a really interesting way about giving feedback in terms of the need to have maybe some tougher conversations at times, but that sense of self might be better served by doing some hard work rather than being served up an environment where you feel good about yourself, but you're not performing at your best, and how you manage those conversations with players.
Yeah, what's interesting, and we've all, doesn't matter what organisation or club you could walk in, you see values on a wall. And one thing about having values and behaviours and really clearly set out, and ones that you all agree on and that you keep revisiting, is it provides actually, and forget the relationships, it actually provides a really good platform to be able to give feedback to individuals. So being consistent, understanding what it is, what are the behaviours under those values. So if I took a few speakers off someone in there, they'd have 3 values that their club stand by, but what do they actually mean? They're not just words on a wall. So that definitely helps. If you're clear on those and clear on the behaviours, then that's a good starting point for being able to provide that sort of feedback if certain people aren't living them or stepping outside of them. So I think values are not only for your culture are critical, but they just give you a good platform for that feedback that you're looking to provide each other as well.
And encouraging young men to do a bit more hard work. How does that go within that context of just understand to be valued not so much the values of an organisation, but to be valued and how you use a sense of self?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I used a line with you: be better to feel better versus feel better to be better. I've had a few players who I don't want too much information, I just want to get in, get out, get my job done. And they're professional athletes, but and then at the end of the day, if you don't plan and prepare well, then you get punched in the face, and all of a sudden you might have been feeling good because you had some time off and good balance, but then you didn't perform, so you're feeling ordinary again. So we talk about with individuals about being better. So put in the work and the hard work, and you'll see results come, and all of a sudden you start feeling better about yourself. So that's something that I've used in the past with my players, and I think it's important. Again, I keep reflecting on my practice that I'm doing at the moment, but I saw a teacher, he had a year 9 class who were battling at maths, and they clearly don't want to be there, but he gave them life lessons, really. He was just talking to them about the fact that they can still put effort in, and the fact that you don't understand maths doesn't mean that you need to be a shit person. Instead, you can still put effort in, you can still apply yourself, and you can still improve. You might not be a genius, but you're going to be a better person for it, and you'll improve your maths. So he pretty much, in a polite way, told them to pull their heads in and have a crack and be good people through their effort. So yeah, there's a few things that I've used with my players along the way, and some things that I've experienced. Yep.
That idea of working on yourself, working at being better, to be better, or to feel better, is I think it has a very strong mental health message in it as well. And that must be something that's really important within your coaching, to be able to have those relationships, to then understand the person in front of you, to understand what pressure feels like for them and how they manage it, to be able to say, why don't you have a bit more of a go at it, and knowing when to maybe back off. Have you learned that skill and capability?
Yeah, I think I have used my experiences in that area before, and you touched on the mental health side of things. In my playing career, I had a lot going on off field, and I was going through a battle trying to get my sister out of foster care, and that went on for years. And I was hating my footy. And at the time, I thought I didn't want to be at the club as well. I wanted to get out of there. But it wasn't actually the footy that I wasn't enjoying. There was other stuff going on. So often we'll have players who aren't enjoying themselves and really struggling and bordering on mental health issues. And when you're really deep and you build those relationships and you understand what's going on, it's not actually the footy that they're not enjoying. It's all the other stuff. So like I said, understanding the person and developing the person before the athlete is critical. But yeah, sharing those stories with players and getting them to understand that there's other stuff that they've got to sort out as well. And sometimes footies, and getting them to understand being a part of a club, and these 2 hours that they're at the club or 2 hours that they're on the field is fantastic for them, and it's not actually the footy that's causing issues. So yeah, understanding what it is that is causing the anxiety and the issues is important. So yeah, back to that first point on building relationships and knowing that person is important.
I guess it's really important to look at that mental health component in the context of preserving the love of the game. I don't think you can be in a bad mental health space, and a lot of people do leave the game maybe not feeling great. So it's a huge responsibility in terms of that more holistic approach today, which I think so many people are grateful for, that we're looking after the men and women who play it and hopefully carrying them through, and they can enjoy it for however many games. And
yeah, we at elite level, what's important is that they are. The thing is, it still is at AFL. It is an elite level, and you are. Unfortunately, they have to make list changes every year. So yeah, like I said, the players developing the person, making sure that they are doing something outside of football, and it's not just all football. And they can walk away. And we touched on it earlier that you might have only played 2 seasons, but you gave it everything. Didn't quite work out, but that's not who you are, and that's not what you identify as. It's just solely an AFL footballer or a footballer. You are doing something else, or you play amateurs for St Bede's, but that's not who you are. You're also an accountant. So if you just identify as a footballer and it's not working out for you, and you're not getting a game of league, or you're getting dropped every week, that's when you're in a bit of trouble. So your self-identity is, there's a lot of things that, family, your work, your club. So yeah, it's not just that one thing. So if that one thing's not working, you've got other things in your life.
Well, we've got Gavin Sharp here with us, who does a bit of coaching in a corporate environment. I think he'd equally agree that for those that are in corporate life who get to the very pointy end, or maybe even just to middle management levels, who have invested in their identity through work, it leaves exactly the same challenge. And we could learn a lot from what you're saying about balance towards life. And the person that we are for our families is a very different person than we are for our work environments. And to understand that and to be able to carry that through to enjoy life in fullness, not just by how people see us maybe in the most public of spaces, is really, really important. And it's interesting, everything you've talked about relationships just correlates back and forth, from teaching to sport, from more, from our careers to sport. And the more we even do this and share across it, particularly with our coaches in a semi-elite and community level, who are doing the things, trying to do the things that you do, but on a part-time basis, but have also all of those responsibilities amongst their, to their families and friends, is it's vital that we share those stories to make sure that we keep balanced about what we do. It's sort of getting on for 8 o'clock, and I want to let you get back to your family. I think it'd be remiss of me, and I hope I'll challenge your humility just a little bit. Again, you've done an extraordinary job of getting to the really pointy end of senior coaching. Are you ambitious to continue exploring that opportunity? And what are the things that maybe you learned from going through I imagine, a very rigorous interview process around the Collingwood job? Did it provide anything that you can bring back to West Coast, to the way that you want to coach, to the way that you want to learn? Maybe, I think there's some media that says maybe that's part of the move to Freo to expand into a different coaching environment. I think we'd be a little bit interested in some of that, and also your learnings about the process for a senior coaching role. There's
no journalists online, is there, that can quote me?
No. There's some really bad journalists, Jaymie. There's some really bad journalists.
I think for me personally, the last couple of years I've had opportunities and I haven't taken them, and I've had some close friends and mentors, and Mac is one of them, who really encouraged me to take an opportunity up to present for a senior role. I've got ambitions. It's something I want to do. Like anything, I've taken it as it's come. I'm not in a rush, but an opportunity presented again, and I thought, with a bit of nudging from people, I took it up. And one thing it does do, and I'd encourage anyone out there, even if you're not going for a head role, it encouraged me to really nut out my philosophies. And I had it all there in paper and I've got it in my mind, but I really put it all together in a presentation, and it gave me clarity on what I stand for as a coach and my philosophies.
Can you say what that is, Jaymie?
To start with, relationships is the foundation of my of coaching, and it sounds simple, but that's who I am as a person, and that's how I approach my coaching. And then from there, love of the game is important. There's a few different areas that I had, and then your philosophies. You might get asked the question, "What do you think about players being late to train?" You have a philosophy on that. So when you talk about coaching philosophy, you get different philosophies for a lot of areas, but my main one is around building relationships and understanding people, and that's what I feel is my strengths, and that's the way I'll approach my coaching. What it did was got me to put it on paper in a presentation, and then get it out there and present to a panel, and for that to be well received, just gave me good confidence that I'm on the right track. It's something that I have ambitions to do, but like I said, I'm not in a rush. I'm still 38 years old. I've had plenty of life experiences, so I feel like I've got a bit of an older head than 38. So yeah, it's something I want to do. I'll definitely take my learnings into my new role at Fremantle, and yeah, help Justin Longmuir as the coach. And still, one of my primary focuses is around developing the players and getting the best out of the individual players who I work with. And I'll be working with the forward line and doing a bit of ball movement, but
Nice.
it'll be around developing the players, them as individuals, them as a line, and then also supporting Longy as the head coach, but also challenging in the right way when that's required.
Just a quick question, Jaymie, how old are your kids?
13 and 11.
Are they enjoying the journey with you? Or is it the whole family?
No, they've quickly bought a Fremantle retro jumper, so they're ready to go. No, they have. They moved over. I also had my sister, she's 18 now and moved out, but they all moved to Melbourne when we moved over there. And I had a confused son who'd go down to the Sandy Dragons game, Macca, with his Sandringham jumper on, a Eagles hat, St Kilda shorts, and South Fremantle socks. He was a confused boy. Now you can add Freo to that. So yeah, they're all part of the journey, and they're really important. I think that's been tough. And you guys have done it very tough in Melbourne, but footy clubs, the sense of belonging and connections, what's important, and AFL clubs haven't been able to get families involved, and I think that's been a bit of a missing piece the last couple of years for many clubs who have been living in hubs and also living in bubbles. So when we've been home, we just haven't been able to have your family connected to the footy club, which has been a bit of a shame. But yeah, they're part of the journey.
Jaymie, it's been an absolute pleasure to interview you. I think your sense of humility, and thank you for stepping me through that, because I was looking at something through the lens of someone who aspired to, stands you in good stead for what I'm sure will be a huge coaching career. I didn't realise that you're only 38, and I think now I better understand that there is wisdom held in 30-year-olds. I didn't get it till I was that was last week, I think. So it's there's great learning, and I learn from the people that I work with who are much younger than me, who actually, the big learning that I get from that is the energy that they bring to an environment, which gives you the chance to impart the wisdom and put it in an energetic place. We'd love to stay in touch if that's at all possible.
Yep.
Maybe just revisit in a couple of years. Be really excited to hear what the journey is like at Fremantle, and see the success that you will bring that club. We have to apologise again, probably. Sorry, Cags, did you want to ask a question?
I do.
Jaymie, have you got time?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yep.
It's a silly.
If anyone has to leave, no worries if you have to jump off.
It's a silly question, Jaymie, but Bob Murphy's joined your coaching staff at Fremantle, and the week before last he was with on his drive home radio show here at SEN, and I assumed that he was actually doing it alongside Andy Marr at the time. But on the Monday morning, after he signs off on the Friday, lo and behold, he happens to be in with the girls taking photographs in Freo tops, etc. I'm assuming he did the last 2 weeks in quarantine. Would that be correct?
Yeah, he to get past Mark McGowan. He was in quarantine while he was doing those radio, and then started on the Monday. Yeah, Bob Murphy, I met him the other night for the first time, and his whole family packed up and off they come. So
it was pretty quick, wasn't it? It was very, very quick move.
He's got I think they're 14, 11 and 9, similar ages to my kids, and they've all packed up and moved and started school. So he said he was happy to get out of town, obviously with everything going on. I think the earthquake hit and he said, I'm out of here. So,
Have
he's
you-
going to be a fantastic addition to the club.
Have you met the whole coaching panel at Fremantle?
I've met most of them. We had a barbecue at JL's the other night. Longie's actually a strong relationship building coach as well. So that was fantastic.
What's a barbecue?
You forgot what a barbecue.
Just about, mate. Just about.
Yeah, I know. No, it was very good.
Sorry, Cags, you've got one more that you want to fire in.
No, I was impressed that you said that your eldest son, I'm assuming, is under 13 or under 12.
Yep.
When you said that you'd spoken to his coach, his junior coach, and you said, "What's the plan?" I'm thinking, I hope this kid isn't under 8 or under 9, because most under 8 or under 9 coaches are trying to herd cats, let alone have a plan of trying to teach them shit.
No. I no, don't worry about that. I had a Year 6 class today, and it was like herding cats. It's simple. I didn't want to put pressure on any coach. I do stand back, and I can't put in the time. So I really admire what the junior coaches do. However, I did ask him what the plan was, and it can be very simple as writing on a napkin at lunchtime. So it doesn't have to be too in depth. But at first, John got his back up a little bit. He said, "Oh, I'm just a dad doing it." I said, "Like, I'm not. I just want to know what the plan. But I'm not going hard at you. But just have a little simple plan. What do you want to get out of the set? Like, what drills are you going to do? Just be a little bit organised." And he took it well.
You didn't say get your act together, John, because I've got a plan for my son to play 300 games of AFL.
No. He just Hudson battles away, and he just loves playing. So see what happens there. But no pressure on the coach. But I said, "John, if you're going to be here, let's do it properly." So I just got to be careful. I wasn't being one of those dads.
Yeah, I said that to Macca when I coached against him in under 14s 2 years ago.
Right. Jaymie, best of luck with the coaching. And if it doesn't come to pass that your next job is a senior coach, we'll look forward to see you as a senior coach of the Western Australian national team playing for the McGowan Cup. It may be we won't have state of origin, but we'll have country of origin by 2026. Macca suggested we should book you in now because you will be a senior coach, and it's going to cost us a fortune to see if you can come back and do this. We'd love you to be a friend of what we're doing. We've got coaches dropping in from Tassie, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, some South Australians. We've had a couple of Western Australians in the first 2 EPs. We just want to help people get connected and enjoy being around footy and being in the footy family. So just thank you so much. I was going to say just before, we will figure this out, but this Zoom hasn't made it easy to offer a bottle of wine. There is a bottle of wine, and we'll get that over to you, and hope you can enjoy that as you embark on the start of next year. And I'm going to watch Fremantle with interest as much as I watch Collingwood. So thank you very much, Jaymie.
Thanks, Richard. And well done to everyone for trying to develop your coaching. It's fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Well done,
I'll touch base with you afterwards, Jaymie. Thank you.
Okay.
To everybody else, thank you again for dropping in, particularly all the Andrews. Great to see so many Andrews here. Don't know what the anomaly is there, but it's really nice to have everybody on board. We're going to the other side in 2 weeks' time. I've completely forgotten the name, but we're going coaching with women. There's great preparedness. I will get the guys to give you the promotion, and I'll
Dale Robinson.
Dale Robinson. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kale. You couldn't ring that through and make me look a little bit better than. Thank you, guys. Enjoying doing this. You may have another host in 2 weeks' time, just to change it up a bit and enjoy somebody else's voice. But we hope to see you again Wednesday fortnight. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Good night. Bye.
Cheers, guys.